Okay, so day 2, right? It's not April yet, but we're getting you a head start. I had, excuse my pink tongue, Peep flavored Oreos. So good. Don't taste like Peeps though. Anyway, I had a couple friends ask or bring up good points, and I thought that they kind of went hand in hand. So I wanted to start there this week. And the question, so today is going to be about friendship, relationships in general. The first friend asked how to be friends and how to interact with someone with autism. In this particular instance, a child, teenager. And the second question was in regards to the relationship with the parent, which I think is a phenomenal question. And it's something that I have had issues with and struggled with on my end. So I am super excited that the question was asked, and I'm proud and excited again that I got such great questions from personal friends. So thank you guys. But the second question is, how do you ask a parent who has a child with autism how their child is doing? Because you truly are interested, but don't want to ask and have that parent feel like you think something is wrong. And I think it's a legitimate question. It's a great question, and I'm proud that my friends came up with such great questions. So we're going to start with the first one. And I want to start by saying, let's remember that everybody wants and needs friends. And kids with autism can struggle making friends, and then once they've made friends, can struggle keeping friends. And I mean, we're talking a pretty decent sized issue. 1 in 68 children in the United States are diagnosed with autism. 1 in 42 boys. Those children grow up to be adults with autism. So we're talking friendships in children and adults. And as my friend pointed out, friendships with their parents. And all of that is important. I think an important thing for parents who have children that are typically developing or neurotypical, if you will, is teach them about disabilities. And I don't mean you have to get your own PhD in the process and learn everything there is to know about each individual disability people have, because that's all you would ever do. But if you educate your children on what disabilities are, if there's somebody in their classroom, for instance, who has a particular diagnosis, that's a great place to start. Teach them the basic things at their level in a way that they can understand. The more that they understand, the more likely they are to have friends who are different. Another really, really important thing is allow your kids to ask questions. This is important. Answer honestly. And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. Like I said yesterday, and I'll say probably the rest of the month, Google can be your friend. And there are books probably within your school library, your community library, and friends who may be living with that diagnosis are a great resource. Don't be afraid to ask. And when I say don't be afraid to ask your friends, also don't be afraid to let your kids ask questions. For instance, my pink tongue is really bothering me. When you're in a grocery store, kids notice. I mean, how often have we been to the store when a kid has said, why is he whatever, or why is she whatever? Because kids notice everything. If you're in public and your child notices and questions something, I'm going to say, and I'm going to go on a limb here, most parents would rather you ask those questions than shush your kid or whisper behind their back. I have a 13-year-old who is quite large for his age. He has a mustache. He carries a stuffed Pikachu. It is clear within 30 seconds of being in the room with him, there's something different. It's obvious he's got a disability. I would much rather people ask than point and whisper and do other things, because I can educate people at that point. So let kids ask questions. They might be uncomfortable questions. Just be polite, be nice. Chances are the other parent is going to be as well, especially if they see that you're doing your part as a parent. Now, if your kid's just a rude little brat, then we have another issue, and we won't even go there. The single most important thing you can do is practice diversity in your everyday life. If your children see you having friends that are different than them, and that could be disability, that could be race, that could be religion, it could be gender, it doesn't matter what it is, the more likely they're going to be open and accepting to those things as well. And maybe you don't have the opportunity to have a friend with a disability, for instance. That's okay. That happens. When you're in a store and you pass somebody, smile and say hi. It's those gestures and those things that are going to make a difference. Because let's face it, we're teaching our children. These kinds of things can be taught at such a young age that discrimination and bullying and leaving people out based on something that's different and uncontrollable is easily fixed if as parents we step up to the plate. So diversity, 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 that's the answer. On the flip side of that, I'm thrilled to be able to discuss having a friendship with the parent of a child with special needs. Stacy, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was that you asked that. I don't know that I would have even thought to address it, but it is such an important issue. And shows what a great friend you are, I think. The first thing I want to say is I hope those of you with no children or children that don't have disabilities, I hope that you understand how precious and important that friendship is. It might not feel like it. You might be friends with a parent, me, who doesn't always reach out or doesn't respond to texts or doesn't call or whatever. Or when you do call and you guys are on the telephone with someone like myself, and I do this a lot, it's not unusual for me to have to hang up abruptly and deal with other things that are more important than talking on the telephone. I value those friendships that I have. And I value those friends that I have that don't distance themselves when I hang up on them twice in 1 week. I want my friends to feel comfortable asking questions, sharing information. It doesn't bother me a bit. So if you ask how my kids are, I'm going to say, oh, they're great. If you're somebody that I'm comfortable with and you ask how my kids are, I may tell you, oh, Christian's been in a bit of a tailspin and, the autism's gotten the best of him. And I may go into details. It really depends on who you are. But if you really, really want to know, hey, I heard Camden was really struggling with his bipolar, how's that going? That doesn't faze me in the least. In fact, that shows me that you have listened and picked up on and noticed the struggles and care enough to ask. I have some friends who never ask about my children. I have some friends who only ask about my children. I appreciate that. I appreciate if you ask, that I feel comfortable telling you, hey, this person really does want to know, because sometimes I feel like this is something that most people have heard me say too, is you don't just have autism. One person doesn't have autism, the whole family does. They might not be diagnosed, but I often say our whole family has special needs because that's the way that it is. So, just ask. I would assume that most parents are going to be comfortable with that, especially if they know you. And, they don't automatically assume you think something is wrong. The other thing that I can say about in terms of having a friendship with the parent is understanding their needs. Most parents, again, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, and I don't really want to generalize, but from my perspective, a parent with special needs is so used to having to control everything and having to really think things through, and they're so tired because their schedules are so full and it's so stressful that sometimes they just need the reminder that they're not alone, and that you care. And that doesn't mean you're going to come solve my problems or that you're going to come handle things when they're stressful. But sometimes I need someone to say, hey, you know what? I'm here to listen. Doesn't necessarily mean I'll talk, but knowing that you're there makes a world of difference. Another thing, it can be lonely. Not that I don't see people on a regular basis or talk to people on a regular basis, but sometimes I'll go weeks and weeks where everything has to do with my kids and their disabilities and their therapies and doctor's appointments and medicines and, whatever, advocating. So reach out to your friend and let them know that, they're not alone. You can't solve their problems. You don't know what they're going through, but you're going to make sure that they don't go through those problems alone. Self-care is something that can be missed with this specific population. So if you have the means and you're capable, take them out for coffee. Maybe make dinner and just drop by their house and bring them dinner. Or if you're comfortable and you're someone that's involved enough, watch one of the kids while they take a nap. I mean, those kinds of things, those small gestures would make a huge, huge difference. Another thing that I have noticed, I have friends that will do is, people research and they want to know more, and that's phenomenal. So, if you do that, great. If you don't, you don't have to. I'm not saying that that's something that you must do, but a lot of people do. Or if you happen to see an article and you think, oh, wow, I didn't know this. The internet's full of alternative facts, if you will. And if we're not careful, you don't always know the truth from not so truthful, not so scientific information. I value someone who says, you know what, I read this. I read that coloring your hair purple is a cure for autism. What do you think? Or, I heard kids with autism can have behavior problems. Is that something you've seen? I think those are great ways to ask those questions. It shows that you care enough that you're really trying to learn, but you're not just assuming that whatever you read is 100% true, because let's face it, everybody is vastly different. The same thing can be said if you read an article that has to do with curing autism or the cause or treatments or whatever, and you want to share it with me. That's great. I don't find any offense in that. I think it's great. I don't think you can ever be too educated when it comes to your children. And I have friends that send me stuff all the time. And sometimes I love it and it's stuff that I use and I'll read and I'll share with others. And sometimes I'll read it and be like, I don't care. And, it is what it is. So that said, because I have talked way longer than I typically intended to, but you know me. The last thing I want to say is don't ever apologize. I'm not sorry. I love my kids with every last breath that I take. And when somebody finds out you have kids with a disability, a lot of times their response is, I'm sorry. I'm not. I love them. I have no regrets, and neither should you. So there you have it. I don't know if I answered either of your questions, Lori or Ashley, but hopefully. And, same thing with every other blog I've done, and as I'll continue to do this week or this month. If you have questions, concerns, if you want to add to what I've said, please do. If you have suggestions in terms of other topics, that's great too. I can talk on the same topic again if I get a lot of feedback, lots of new questions, or, if you have resources that you want to share, products. I'd love to do some product reviews this month. So if you have items that have been helpful for you, please reach out to me. If you are a company or a business or whatever, and you have an item that you'd love to get constructive feedback from a mom and two of her autistic kids, that would be something we'd be willing to do too. So I think I'll talk about grief tomorrow. We'll see, because it's such a heavy subject. I haven't decided when I'm going to throw that one in yet. But if you have any other suggestions, let me know.